Back again, another video. I'm still on the Nolan Wells case, and a few things happened within the past few days which I wanted to continue the discussion. I was watching Benjamin Crump's and the Wells family's press conference that they had yesterday, and I was a little hesitant to do this video before I saw the press conference, but after watching the press conference and them reassuring me and others that we should keep making videos to bring up and highlight Nolan Wells so that he's not another African American's death that's swept under the rug. And I appreciate them comforting us like that. I think that a lot of Nolan Wells' attention has been used as clickbait. And I do know that there are some out there who are genuinely looking after this case to get justice. And I don't know, I just felt like before I watched their press conference, I felt like maybe I was just another that was oversaturating the algorithm, I guess. But with all that being said, the boys did a press conference again with Officer Tatum, or interview, I'll say, with Officer Tatum, where you could see the strategy that they're kind of going for with how they want to approach the investigation. It seems more now that they're trying to paint themselves as the victims. And honestly, the acting that they did, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I can't call it acting, but because we still don't have all the facts yet. And I do try my best to make sure that I'm not accusing anybody without having the facts. But I don't know. It just makes you feel like with their strategy that they are hiding something, and that's just the gut intuition. I don't have anything to really base that off of, at least nothing other than the Cito recording. But they're painting themselves as victims. Their lawyer also chose to seem to intimidate the people that are speaking up against them, and it seemed like it was a broad intimidation attempt, to where it wasn't aimed at people that were just threatening them. It wasn't aimed at people that were just lying about them. It seemed like an attempt to silence and intimidate everybody who was speaking against them. And after my first video, which I think it couldn't have been timed any better, it just made it even more evident how big of a deal public opinion I think will play in this case, because you can clearly tell that that's something that they're trying to get ahead of. They want people to think of them as all American boys, good community citizens, as if that means that there's no way that they can harm anybody. And I just appreciated the way that Benjamin Crump, Kristen, the way that they talked about it. I also see how this case is turning into a chess match. And I mean, I love chess matches. I wish it didn't revolve around a person's death. But we can see that each side has a strategy. The boys' side made the first move, and I think Benjamin Crump followed up with the even better move of just reassuring people that our voices will count towards making sure that Nolan Wells' name isn't forgotten, that Nolan Wells' name justice is actually sought after responsibly, and they're not just looking at him as another Black American whose life doesn't matter equally. So that does give me reassurance, because one of the major points that they brought up at the press conference was Nolan Wells is all of our children. We would want justice for our child if it was in that case, and I think that when you think about it that way, Nolan Wells is our child, because if we don't attack this case with that ferocity and combat their what seems to be conniving nature, then it could very well be our child one day, and it could lead to our child being swept under the rug. So we have to take it seriously. We have to be patient and not be accusatory, but also make sure that we are following the steps and make sure that everything is done properly. That way, whatever conclusion that they can come to, we'll know it wasn't any bias, and that it was sought after in the proper manner. One thing that I noticed too was that when it comes to the phone forensics, Benjamin Crump made it a point for their side to do the investigation along with the boys' side, which I think is a major factor. I think whatever comes from that phone and the forensics of it could be what inevitably makes this case go before a jury. And I do think that with them making sure, Benjamin Crump making sure that this is a joint searching of the phone, they want to make sure that that side, the boys' side, is not covering evidence, and they're doing everything that they can to get the facts properly. And it just shows that they don't trust them to do that without looking over their shoulder. And that's sad to say, but I mean, honestly, how can you blame them? The officer came out as soon as Nolan Wells was found, and within a few hours claimed that there was no foul play. So I think that is a very necessary step, and one that I'm glad that Benjamin Crump and their family has taken. I'm anxious to see what's happening next, because with them playing that whole victim and they're the ones that are going through all this mental turmoil, I do think that they did a pretty good job of, if their goal was to garner some pity, they did that. I mean, I can't lie. While watching it, it almost made me forget that these are guys that could be possibly involved in the death of Nolan Wells. And I had to remind myself, like, these guys are not the victims here. Nolan Wells is the victim. But them playing that victim role, which we all know that they're good at, it just goes to show that you got to be able to watch them and combat every move that they make with a more strategic move. You cannot allow your emotions to get ahead of you, and you have to think logically when they're trying their best to think logically. I mean, I think the one thing that Nolan Wells and Benjamin Crump have on their side is we know that they're operating in truth. And I think that if you're operating in truth and using logic, I'm sure it's going to be hard to capture something so slithery. They're almost like a fish when you reel them in and you try to hook them or throw them into the net, and then the fish just slips out of your hand and goes back into the water. I can only imagine how frustrating that is, because when we heard that CETO call, that was almost like hooking the fish. That was the aha, I got you. And then as soon as it's acknowledged, all of a sudden, the recording was enhanced. We have to get proper forensics. There's no legitimacy to it. And that's frustrating. And that was them slithering themselves back into the water. At least trying to do so. I know they're not completely out of the woods. But that was their attempt to slither themselves back into the water. And I think the next step is just watching everything unfold as this chess match continues, and hopefully they come to a conclusion on when they can do this phone forensics. I'm also anxious to see what comes of the autopsy, because I think that's going to tell a great deal about what the next steps will be. I'm hoping the Nolan Wells side has a fair shot to do their portion of a full autopsy so that they can come to hopefully the same conclusions that the state side did. But I do appreciate, and I definitely reassured by Benjamin Crump's message to everybody that has been making videos and just constantly bringing up Nolan Wells' name, to just not let it be forgotten. Our ability to keep his name going and combat their use of what they're trying to sway as far as public opinion, and making sure that people understand who is actually the victim here. I think at this time that's our duty and that's our responsibility, because again, Nolan Wells could be our son. Thank you for listening.